Patricia Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I rise today to focus on the pensions aspect of this debate. And we would all agree that it's the duty of the United Kingdom Government to make sure that pensioners fully understand the impact that changes in their pension will have on their retirement planning. And this is, of course, an extremely complex matter, and we know that many people struggle to understand the impact changes in their pension will have on their pension pots, and the movement from a basic state pension and a state earnings-related pension, commonly known as SERPS, to a one-off calculation is a matter which is far from straightforward, and it does have and it will have an impact on people's ability to understand their pension pots. Indeed, some people who have been extensively contracted out will just get the basic state pension figure. And we've heard tonight from the honourable member from Airdrie and Shotts that it is good that there will be a minimum guarantee linked to the Consumer Price Index, but there's also some adverse impacts. We know, for example, that those who were contracted out were not necessarily aware or understood what this meant at the time, and certainly could not and would not have anticipated that the retirement income in the future would be impacted upon negatively by the changes as the Government has made to the state pension. For those without savings to fall back on, of course, and hit very hard are the WASP women, a significant loss of income and real hardship. The fact is, and many of us are tired of saying it, and I hope the Minister isn't tired of hearing it, because he's hearing it but he doesn't seem to be listening. His government are not listening. That the UK Government should have communicated the impact of these changes better for those who were contracted out. It's absolutely imperative that the UK Government make sure that they are adequately informing people, as they have a duty to do, of the impact of the new state pension on people's pension pots. And this is worth saying because, apart from those on the government benches, just about everybody, I think, agrees that the UK Government has completely failed in this duty with regard to WASP women. With changes to the 1995 Act bringing in changes in 2010, it was only from 2009 onwards that women were being written to, and many were simply not being told, and so were completely unaware of the changes being made to their pensions. This is an appalling abdication of responsibility and shows a complete disregard for the impact such changes would have on the lives of those affected. And we know that so many women, so many WASP women, were simply unaware of the changes, but the Government, as I have said, has not been listening. But it's worth remembering that DWP research carried out in 2004 found that less than half of women surveyed were aware of the impact the changes would have on their state pension age, with levels of awareness particularly low for those who would arguably be worst affected, women who were economically inactive. In addition, the Pensions Committee in 2005 said that a policy of significant notice of any increase, for example around 15 years, should be possible. And in 2008, the Pensions Advisory Service also reported low levels of knowledge about the state pension and said this must be addressed by the Government. So the warning signs were all there, despite how much the UK Government insists that it did enough to inform women of changes to their pension age. But I believe that this whole episode has undermined the social contract that the state pension represents. If you don't believe that, then perhaps it's worth spending 5 minutes with a WASP woman. With contracting out and its impacts, it's extremely important that the Government tells the House what provisions are in place now and have been previously to ensure that people are fully informed of the impact on this on their own pension pots. Because if some are unable to make ends meet due to having lower payments because of contracting out, the Government needs to explain what support and advice is to be made available to them. But the fact is that pensions are far too important to be kicked about by governments of different political persuasions. Once again, we in the SNP, and we've heard it tonight as well from the member for Airdrie and Shotts, we are asking for an independent pension commission, and we will continue to do so, because only then can we properly address the needs of pensioners and prepare for the looming pensions and savings crisis which many fear will come to pass. And I would draw the Minister's attention to the spike in pensioner poverty, which shows that many of those in the over 60 age bracket are being failed by the Government. I will indeed.
I thank the honourable member for giving way. On that particular issue, would the honourable member agree with me that perhaps one way forward is for actually the Parliamentary Ombudsman to look at what was clearly the poor quality communication from the 1995 Act onwards and make a ruling whether the communication was good enough or bad enough, because at least there we will find out for sure what I think is true, that there was poor communication, and it would rely on the Parliamentary Ombudsman to give us that steer.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his insight. Yes, that is actually an idea worth pursuing, but I fear that the WASP women are in a position now where they feel, rather sadly, that the only option left to them is now through the courts and a legal challenge. And I think if this is how this matter if this is where this matter finds itself, I think that in itself is an indictment of the government letting these women down. But either way, the WASP women are not going to go away, and it may be through the Parliamentary Ombudsman, it may be through the courts, but I think this matter is far from over. The Joseph Rowntree Foundation has said that over the last 4 years, 300,000 more pensioners have been driven into poverty. And it's worth noting that this is the first sustained increase in pension poverty for over 20 years. And that on its own should give us pause for thought. I see the Minister shaking his head, but that is a matter he should really take up with the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, who I think are a very credible organisation. But the attack on pensioners has been really rather sustained, and we saw this in the government's own election campaign when there was an attack on the triple lock. There was talk, in fact there was a threat of a dementia tax. Now thankfully those threats have receded because it cost the government its majority, but it really is a matter that requires the government's full attention. It really should reflect on the electoral consequences as well as the moral consequences of these attacks. But according to the European Commission research from 2015, the UK has a wider than average gender pensions gap. We are trailing behind the rest of Europe in how we treat our pensioners, and I think that's a matter that the government should take very seriously. After the WASP fiasco, it is true to say that confidence in pensions has been undermined, whilst at the same time we are trying to encourage younger generations to plan for their future. Those two situations don't sit side by side very comfortably. An independent pensions commission would ensure that employee savings are protected, and a more progressive approach for fairer savings is looked at as we move to a period where we're moving towards new state pensions taking effect. The need for an independent commission is needed more than ever, and it really is the time for the government to look seriously at this in the long-term interests of pension security, and I urge the Minister to do so.